The only other things you need to know, Vicar, Bollhagen will point to you at some point. I know it sounds weird, but you have to say, Peter, play the intro with as much gusto as you can muster. And then I won't play anything, but I'll put it in post.
Recorded live at Talks and Tasting Studios, it's the Clerical Errors Podcast, the podcast that shows you what's behind the collar. Let's go.
From the Talks and Tasting Studios, this is the Clerical Errors Podcast, the podcast that shows you
what's behind the collar.
This is Bollhagen.
This is Berg.
Peter, play the intro.
All right, off to a great start. He's
I knew you were going to do that. Say, and I'm Vicar.
Say I'm Vicar.
I'm Vicar.
All right.
Yep. He was on it.
Yep.
He was on it. I like this guy.
He's following instructions. Yeah. That was our bad. So, yeah.
I like this guy.
Poor Vicar.
That was awesome. All right, so, yes, I always get amped up the new Vicar Day. So, if I see you amped up, that's because I am. And one thing I've been starting to do is I have a speed top 12 list, which for you probably makes no sense, but to the listener it does.
It's just like the divine service. You just have to be in it to understand it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't given much instruction, so.
Right.
No.
So I'm going to start. You have to, for this, just give me the numbers quick, starting with 12.
Okay.
But before we get to this list,
Peter, play the intro.
No nonsense. It's time for Bollhagen's Top 12.
All right, so this is the speed top 12. You're going to count down Bollhagen, so start with number 12.
yes, these are my top 12 Olympic observations. I watch the
12.
Olympics. Huh?
12?
Number 12. Right. There are too many swimming events. It's kind of like track. Like, imagine they have swimming, backstroke, breaststroke.
This is supposed to be a speed. Come
I
on,
know.
Bollhagen. Come
What
on.
are you doing? Come on.
All
This
right.
is just a top 12.
I know. Okay. I was pent up a little bit. Number 11. Why does every pastor think of himself like that Turkish sharpshooter? You're not that cool, bro.
Okay.
Number 10. The German national anthem sounds oddly familiar.
9.
Yeah. I didn't see the opening ceremonies. What did I miss?
8.
Number 8. Handball. It's like water polo without water. Soccer. You can use your hands. Hockey without sticks and ice. And basketball with a larger net and small ball. It's kind of like if you can swallow your pride,
How
you
in
can
the
get a
world
gold
is this
medal.
a speed top 10?
I don't know. Because I'm going fast. Number 7. More wrestling.
6.
6. I still think I could have made the Olympics in high jump.
5.
Number 5. Gold medal game in basketball on a 120-inch screen was amazing.
4.
The dude for the USA on the pommel horse kind of looks like a SEM student.
3.
3. I enjoyed him. It was fun times.
3.
2. All right. I now consider myself a B pastor.
1.
LeBron James, Steph Curry. Come
Heck
on.
yeah.
I'll admit I don't understand what just happened, but
Yeah, that's all right. You'll get a hang
Welcome
of
to
it.
the world of
You'll get the hang of it.
podcasting, Vicar.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. If you came, we do get some serious theology in here, but not all the time. So I actually had a top 12 list last time.
By the way, you mentioned the final, or the Serbia game was better. USA Serbia.
That was a good
Game
game.
of the tournament.
Yeah, Peter was fired up.
I was fired up.
Right. So last week we had a guest vicar because you were moving in, and I had never met him, so I had a top 12 assumptions that I figured I could make about him, and he'd have to tell me if they were true or not.
Okay.
Just because, I know vicars at this point, I think. So
What is this, number 23? 24?
21. So
21.
21.
Oh.
just feels like 24.
Some of them, yes.
Yes.
So,
And
all
I
right.
left this in here so that if you kind of worry about what's going on, you can look at the award there.
Yeah.
It's not a fluke. All right, so I did this last week, and I can tell you didn't listen. So and most of these were spot on for the last guy, and so I'm gonna make
So is he supposed to answer these when you
just
yes or no?
If these are
Just
if
give
this-
us quick yes or no. Yeah.
yeah, quick yes or no's if any of these are true. Okay, Peter, you want to do the numbers because I don't want to move overthinking this to answer these and do the numbers.
Yeah, sure.
All right.
Number 12.
Is this a true assumption or not? Okay. Your favorite hymn is generally hard to sing.
Yes.
All right.
Number 11.
Yeah.
When you don't know the answer to a question, you will generally ramble on about adiaphora, what it is and what it isn't.
No.
No. Okay.
Number 10.
All last year you prayed every day to go to Hampton, Iowa.
No.
Okay.
Number 9.
You have a knee-jerk reaction to begin a prayer with the words, "Thank you for bringing us all here together safely."
Nope.
Oh, wow. Striking out. Number 8, you've convinced yourself that dark beer is always better.
No.
All right.
Ooh.
Number 7.
You have trouble communing with those who don't use Luther's mealtime prayer before eating.
I could see that. It's true. Yeah.
Okay.
Number 6.
You've had vivid dreams about forgetting your sermon and everyone staring at you and being mad.
No, actually.
That's coming.
Number
All
5.
right. You are willing to go anywhere on vicarage as long as everything was orthodox.
Sure.
Okay.
Number 4.
You have a fancy messenger bag.
No, but I it's on my agenda.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Actually,
Number
your
3.
agenda goes in it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, boo.
Which is funny. I just got myself a fancy messenger bag. So,
Number 3.
you have a strong opinion on whether John 6 is sacramental or not. And it makes you wonder if we're going to wind up with 2 synods.
No.
Okay.
No.
Number 2.
Number 2.
Well, I do have an opinion, but I've changed it recently.
Oh, my. Oh, my.
Ooh.
Sometimes you wear the clothes of dead people.
I don't know what this. I'm gonna say no.
Well, most of the clothing from the co-op.
Oh yeah, yeah. Then probably.
Yeah.
Number 1.
Number 1, you have a mental ranking of the quality of your classmates' facial hair.
No.
Okay.
Ooh.
I can tell you who does though.
Who?
Peter Scare.
Okay.
Do you want an explanation as to in every class that I've taken with Peter Scare, he talks about how men these days in the seminary like to grow beards as like a statement of they want to be manly men and not
Right.
effeminate. So he'll go around, oh, you have a pretty good beard, but then he never has one. So he talks about how great men's beards are, but he himself typically doesn't grow one.
Okay.
It's an interesting thing of his.
So I have some here that didn't make the list, the honorable mentions. Okay. You like chiasms but don't understand them.
Dr. Just does.
Okay.
He likes chiasms. I'm sure he understands them.
Okay.
Clarify that.
All right. Because my point is, don't worry soon, only one of those will be true. The important word in free will offering is free. Vicars like free stuff.
Sure.
Yeah. You met your wife on a blind date, the closest thing to an arranged marriage.
No.
Okay. You have argued with your wife because you really wanted an orthodox sounding name for your children.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
See? All right.
Were those
Pretty
the
good,
same
pretty
ones
good.
used yesterday, or did you rewrite different ones for me specifically?
No, these are the same ones I used with the last vicar.
Because
And
it's one size fit all kind of thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because I had never met him before. So I just basic assumptions about any vicar that I bring to the table. And I think he had more yeses than nos.
Yeah, this
Yeah,
was
I think
Pastor
you-
Hamilton from Eldora, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he
Nerd.
thought I was reading his mind. Did it come
Now, I
across that
think
way to you, Pete?
his dad, and
Yeah,
I think
I did.
he listened they listen to this podcast all the time, right?
Yeah. Pastor
Don't
Hamilton.
you remember at his installation? Was it ordination and installation?
No, it was
his
just an
dad-
installation. Yeah.
Installation, yeah.
Yeah.
So-
His dad said, because we were late getting the episode out that morning, and he said he walked to it. So, anyways, that was a little self-indulgent, but we should probably talk about the text.
Okay. So,
So
I'll
this
take
is
it.
what are we
Should I
preaching
take it
on?
this time?
Sure.
All right. So the text is from Trinity 12, Mark 7:31 through 37. Then he, Jesus, returned from the region of Tyre and went through Sidon to the Sea of Galilee in the region of the Decapolis. And they brought to him a man who was deaf and had a speech impediment, and they begged him to lay his hand on him. And taking him aside from the crowd privately, he put his fingers into his ears, and after spitting, touched his tongue. And looking up to heaven, he sighed and said to him, Ephphatha, that is, be opened. And his ears were opened, his tongue was released, and he spoke plainly. And Jesus charged them to tell no one. But the more he charged them, the more zealously they proclaimed it. And they were astonished beyond measure, saying, He has done all things well. He even makes the deaf hear and the mute speak.
All right. Yeah, got any thoughts off the top of the dome, Berg?
Yeah. Okay. So I think, first and foremost, this text is often used of baptisms, especially in the Roman Rite, where Ephphatha is used, be opened, that the spiritually deaf and the spiritually mute begin to speak.
Mhm.
So that would be kind of more of a, using it in a kind of a typological way, I guess.
Mhm.
Another way that you could talk about this is that Jesus comes not only to forgive sins, but also to heal the body, and that he will do this on the last day. You could tie it with the Isaiah 29 reading that in those days the deaf will hear the words of the book, and that those who are poor, and in the Septuagint, the word there is those who are despairing, will rejoice in the Lord.
Mhm.
You could talk about how he has done all things well. That kalos language, like kalos, good shepherd. You could talk about the geography of where Jesus is going through and why he does the things that he does.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing you're good at. So give us some of that, Berg.
So what I think here is like Tyre, which is the first place mentioned. That place was actually in league with Solomon. Hiram, the king of Tyre, was really in kind of an alliance with King Solomon. This is where they got the timber from in order to build Solomon's temple. And then later on, it actually falls away and becomes Israel's enemy, and God speaks some pretty harsh words over Tyre. So you could say that these are people who have apostatized from the true faith. Sidon is the place where Jezebel comes from. Her father was the king of Sidon, and so she brought her Baal worship with her. And at the same time, this is also the place of the widow of Zarephath. And so even within a evil and pagan region, you do see faith flickering there. And then you also have the Decapolis, which means 10 cities. It's a Greek name. And so you have those Greeks who had never really had too much interaction with the Hebrews, with the exception of having some Hebrew slaves sold to the Greeks via the Philistines and the Arabians and the like. So you could actually have like a 3-part sermon there on the fact that Jesus goes to those who have apostatized from the true faith. You could have the second part of your sermon could be Sidon, and that even among the demons, true faith grows. And then with the Decapolis, you can talk about how, these people who had never really received the gospel, those of the islands, the far isles, as the Old Testament says, how they finally received the gospel as well.
Right.
I think that then leads into why Jesus takes the guy away from the crowd privately. You could talk about that as being, God only deals with individuals, that is personal faith. You could also talk about it in the fact that they would view his sign language, the actions that he's doing to tell the man what he's doing, so that way this man might have faith. They could misconstrue that as witchcraft. So,
Yeah, and another baptism thing is, I think this would be a good passage, in a sense, to look at infant baptism, because
and that the sacraments are based on the word, right? Because what finally opens his ears?
Right, because you bring an infant that can't speak, it can hear, but it can't hear. If that makes any sense.
It can hear but not understand, and even the deaf. I mean, we baptize the deaf.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, and the other thing there is, like, you could actually expound more on our definition from the confessions that the sacraments are the visible word.
Right.
Because how can eating and drinking do such great things? Well, certainly not just eating and drinking, but the word of God, with the eating and drinking does these things. Same thing with how can water do such great things? Certainly not just the water, but the word of God in and with the water does these things, along with the faith which trusts this word of God in the water.
Yeah.
So, do we cover it all?
I think so. I've been busy lately, so my head is spinning. So yeah, I think that sounds good. I like to say I got a lot done on this sermon so far, but not so much.
I understand. I'm actually preaching the earlier part of chapter 7 on the washing and on hypocrisy. So, which also has some really interesting washing and baptismal references in it. Yeah. Where the Pharisees are doing false baptisms of washing their hands with the fist, the pitchers and the bronze vessels and the couches, right?
Right.
So,
you have any thoughts, Vicar?
I think when Christ uses, his spit to, put in the ear of the man, I can't help but see it as sort of restoring creation, as we see like in Genesis 2, where, man is placed, by these streams of water, and God breathes life into him. So you kind of have that idea of the Spirit and also the Word, proceeding from the very mouth of Christ. And then the water that man has. And when man falls, he's cursed to become as dust, implying that he's lost the Spirit.
Right.
And the water of life, which Christ restores.
Yeah, I like that because, the spirit and spirits, generally, there's association with water, even evil spirits.
Yeah.
Right. With the pigs drowning
in water.
Looking for water, spirits looking for finding only waterless places.
Yeah, and when Christ is tempted in the wilderness, he's driven out where there is no water.
Right. Very good. Very good. So this tends to be more of a self-indulgent episode because we got to get to know the vicar, right? It's kind of tradition.
Indeed.
And this will be fun because, well, one, you haven't listened to too many episodes, so
I think I've listened to two.
Two, yeah. What did you find out about the podcast?
Well, I'd heard from a classmate after I was assigned here. Oh, your supervisor has a podcast. I'm like, oh, really? So I looked it up and I listened to a couple. I listened to the one after you came back from seminary to see if I was mentioned in any way, shape, or form.
What did I say? I don't remember.
Nothing really. You just talked about how the sermon you gave and how that went.
Okay.
Whatnot.
Yeah.
What did you think of the sermon?
Hey, hold on.
I was not disappointed.
Oh, is that in the list? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we should probably do the top 12 list, getting to know the vicar, right?
Peter, play the intro.
Oh, you could do better than that. Come on. You got this, man.
Grand. Peter, play the intro.
Yeah. I thought red hair is supposed to have a fiery attitude.
Yeah, channel your macho man Randy Savage.
Peter, play the intro.
There we go.
I like it. Let's go.
Enough nonsense. It's time for Bollhagen's Top 12.
All All right, so I have 12 questions here just to help us get to know you a little better.
Sounds good.
Right? No pressure. No worries. Like the first one is pretty simple.
Number 12.
What would be your baseball walk-up song? Do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
That's a great question.
It is.
Jeez. The only thing that's popping in my head right now is Eye of the Tiger, but I know that's like extremely cliche. But
No, that's great. My
That's a
son
good one.
loves that. He loves that hymn.
All right, I'm sorry. I want to hijack for a second. That's such a good question. I want to hear from everybody else. What would your baseball walkout be?
Rebel Yell, Billy Idol.
It's a good one.
Or maybe Rock You Like a Hurricane, Scorpions. But, I gotta, I'm a little urban. Something hip-hop would be great, too.
I'm a little urban.
says the man from Hampton, Iowa.
How many rap concerts have you been to?
0.
I've been to at least 2 more than you. Thank you.
You don't get to be proud of that unless it was someone good.
Yeah. Actually, I went to see MC Hammer twice.
Oh,
The
man.
first time I saw
Nice.
MC Hammer, I was the only white guy. The second time I saw MC Hammer, there were no white guys or no black people there. he became pop 40 and then lost all his street cred. All right. So but I would probably stick with those 2. All right. How about you, Berg?
Yeah, Berg, what you got?
Probably They're Coming to Take Me Away, haha, from Napoleon the 14th.
I can't picture that one. From Napoleon the 14th?
Yeah.
So what album is that?
It
Well,
probably came out before I was born.
I don't know.
yeah, so it's 1966 novelty record, written
Okay.
and performed by Jerry Samuels, billed as Napoleon the 14th. So
Nice.
it
I'll
was
have to
number
listen to
3rd
that.
on the Billboard Hot 100 Popular Music Singles chart on August 13th. Number 1 on the Cashbox Top 100 Pop Singles charts. Number 2 in Canada. Number 4 on the UK Singles chart.
All right.
So
There you go.
So
I picked Godzilla by Eminem.
Do you know that reminds me? Okay, I gotta say this because I have ADHD and I bring up random things. What you just said reminded me one time. Don't ask me how I got in this situation, okay? I was at a KOA campsite and a barbershop gospel quartet came to do a concert at the campsite. And this was, I was maybe 20. And so this barbershop gospel quartet did a concert at this KOA in front of maybe 15 people. They had this giant tour bus, okay, for going to KOA, right? And before every song, they would say something like, and this one got up to number 38 on the gospel quartet charts. And we were supposed to be impressed. Yeah. All right. That was good for me.
well, I mean, this is kind of like
That is pretty
Parks
funny.
and Rec, where they designed the game Cones of Dunshire, and it's like 39 on this 100 board games list, and it's described as punishingly intricate.
Our podcast isn't big enough to be on any lists yet.
Number 11.
What is your deepest fear that makes you feel vulnerable that you would never want us to talk about on the podcast?
Probably like drowning in a glass chamber. I know that's very specific.
Oh, okay. All
Okay,
right.
sure. How do you feel about MRI machines?
I'm okay with them.
Okay.
There's no water.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, because people do get stuck on them. Not that often, but it does happen once in a while.
Yeah,
Not
no.
that you should worry
Yeah.
about it.
It would never happen to you, but
No.
like it does happen.
It does happen.
So, okay, why? I just have to ask why. Like, I mean, did you watch a lot of magicians when you were
No,
younger?
just the idea of suffocating is not something that, yeah.
Yeah.
I
Not
hear
my
ya, I
preferred
hear
way
ya.
to pass.
By the way, Berg, I like how he say the question was that you would never want us to talk about.
You immediately were like, "Hey, why though?
let's camp out
Explain
here for a minute."
yourself."
Well, I'm just that kind of dude.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I have the very Victorian fear of being buried alive. So,
Yeah, that wouldn't be great either.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of similar.
Yeah. I mean,
But,
that's kind of like vicarage.
water. Water in a glass case. Does that make you you just don't want to have that stricken look of horror on your face that everyone can see, or
Don't dwell on this, man. This is
if you
mean.
drown in the ocean or something, right? Okay, you're being cast around in the waves. It's kind of it's a very dramatic sort of thing. If you're in a chamber and it's filling up from the bottom and you're just waiting, and then eventually the last inch at the top goes away, and now it's just completely still, and the only thing that would be moving is you. That is just kind of terrifying to me. Kind of
So like a
anticipation.
Titanic situation, like being stuck in the Titanic as it goes down.
See, now you know how the old Adam feels.
Number 10.
Why Fort Wayne?
Why Fort Wayne?
Yeah.
Both of my pastors at the two different churches I've gone to.
You want to give him a shout out?
Yeah, Reverend Joshua DeYoung in Racine, Wisconsin, previously in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, and Pastor Robert Catherwood of Rome, New York. Yes, my pastor is the Bishop of Rome.
Wow.
Yeah.
rock on.
Both of them had been there. So they recommended it. I heard it was the more conservative of the two. So.
Okay. Did you even visit St. Louis?
No. I didn't apply.
Number 9.
What is the fiercest animal that you could think you could take with your bare hands?
With my bare hands, okay. Ooh.
Like a rabid Labrador?
I don't know. A Labrador might be pushing it. I feel like I could take maybe a fisher, if you know what those are.
No.
They can be pretty
No,
aggressive.
what is it?
I don't know how to describe it, but they're not very big, but apparently they can be extremely violent if they feel threatened. But
Are we talking scales, fur? Is this a mammal? Is it like a
It's
cat?
a mammal. It's they normally live in the woods. They climb trees. They're not particularly happy animals.
Like an angry squirrel.
They're bigger than a squirrel. They're probably maybe the size of a bobcat, which, speaking of which, maybe I could take a bobcat. I don't know if I'd live very long afterwards, but I feel like maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, when I've noticed, like when you're fighting an animal, it's all about
I've noticed.
attitude, right?
You noticed.
Yeah. For example, the guy who
he just comes out here and
squares up with a
punches
kangaroo,
bears.
right? You just can't be afraid, right? Yeah. It's kind of like being a pastor, really.
Yeah.
So what is the animal you said?
I said fisher. I really don't know that much about them, so it might have been a terrible choice.
No, we're used to it.
Yeah. I don't want anyone listening to go out and think that they can, fight and wrestle a fisher and then they end up dead. So
Yeah, we don't have the budget for that kind of lawsuit.
What kind of sounds does a fisher make?
No
Can
clue.
you,
I've only seen one once. They're not super common.
So is it like a feline?
Is it a cat-like creature?
Maybe it kind of. I don't know. They climb trees.
Okay,
This is what
So let's
Wikipedia is
take it
for.
back.
If you want to learn more, just
Vicar was walking around, saw an animal once, and said, "I could take it."
I got this. I could take it.
yeah. I was almost attacked by.
I mean, that's what I do every time I go hiking. I'm like, yeah, I can take that.
Yeah, I was almost attacked by a buck once because I decided I wanted to sleep outside below freezing, like in the fall or whatever. So it went well, other than the fact that apparently I ticked this buck off because it was mating season, and I heard these noises outside my tent. So I clapped and yelled to make it stop because he was trying to flirt with the ladies. And I started, after I did that, I heard deer run away, and then I started hearing this bizarre sound that to me sounded like an evil cough. Like if the devil was coughing, that's what this buck sounded like. And I didn't know it was a buck at the time. What on earth is this thing? So it would walk around the tent, and make this noise. And finally, I just got out of the tent and went inside the house because I didn't know what was going on. And talked about the experience the next morning with my family. And they're like, oh yeah, you ticked off a buck and it wanted to fight you because you scared off its potential mates.
He would have stomped you out, man.
Yeah, I would have been dead.
As we say in Iowa,
Moved up.
nothing runs like a deer.
Yep.
Yeah, that's one thing interesting about men. Let me explain something to the female listener. That most men, probably 51 or older, like keep a mental list of who they think they could take. You know what I mean? Is that just me?
It's kind of like that Toby Keith song, right? I ain't as good as I once was, but I'm as good once as I ever was.
Amen, brother. All right.
That was for you.
Number 8.
What challenges do you think AI brings to the work of the church?
AI? Oh, geez. Well, just off the cuff, I think the immediate gratification is always tempting. So I think if people can get a quick, seemingly coherent, quote unquote, well thought out answer from a machine in a matter of seconds versus their pastor, I think there's a temptation to go to that for like theological questions or exegetical type questions, especially like, I mean, not just within Lutheranism, but if your pastor isn't necessarily like the most solid or thoughtful, I could imagine that would be tempting just to ask that, and which is obviously a problem because AI doesn't think, it just, compiles different things from sources. So I think pastors should be ready to answer difficult questions and, always, and I imagine this comes with experience because, I'm definitely not there, but just.
Well, that's part of the podcast. By the end of the podcast.
Yeah. Being able to.
You'll be an expert.
Yeah. Being able to answer people's questions and, handle the word of God effectively in all its fullness. I know some people are worried about, like, I've heard, I don't know how serious they are. People be like, oh, well, why couldn't we have an AI pastor, just have something, say the words of institution over the elements. I don't really foresee that happening, in my opinion. I think a lot of times these things that we think are going to be so apocalyptic don't end up being quite as profound as we think they are. So I don't see a dystopian future in terms of AI, especially since it's already not doing the things that people said it would do, like, take away certain jobs and whatnot. So.
Oh, just wait.
We'll see.
Terminator 2, man.
Although AI can write a pretty decent hymn on the Lord's Supper.
It can do that.
Number 7.
What do you consider your greatest athletic achievement?
I ran 5 miles in 33 minutes in college once. So that's pretty good.
Yeah. That's 33. That's what, 6.5 minutes per?
It's like, yeah, I think it was like 6:28 was the average or something. That's not like going to get me any scholarships, but that's better than the vast majority of people.
Yeah. Hey, we should maybe do a Clerical Errors 5K. Help promote the podcast. Work on that.
Whatever you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, get that one scheduled.
Yeah.
Number 6.
What is your opinion on the recent Reader's Edition of the Large Catechism?
I'm not answering
Just
that.
kidding. That was just a joke. What is your favorite miracle?
My favorite miracle?
Yeah.
I would say the healing of the blind man in John. What is it? Is it John 9 or 10?
Oh, Bartimaeus?
Yeah, that one for sure.
Mm-hmm.
When he's kicked out of the synagogue and so forth. I think that's a beautiful picture of the baptismal life. That once you are baptized into Christ, now you are separated out from the world and persecuted, because when he's asked, in one of the responses the man gives is "I am," ego eimi. So he's identifying himself with the Son of God, because now in baptism you are ontologically identified with the nature of Christ, because you're baptized into his death and resurrection. And because of that confession, he's hated
Number 5.
If you could add a liturgical color to the church year, what color would it be and why and when?
Jeez. Most colors are used, aren't they? Let's say
I
orange.
mean, base colors. Sure.
Let's
Orange
say
isn't
orange.
used, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, not like a gross orange, but like
Orange Crush.
like a nice no. Like a
Whoa. That was a fast no.
That was a fast no.
like a sunset orange, but
Syracuse Orange.
no.
New York reference. Trying.
I got it.
A
but-
Texas orange. Texas orange.
Texas orange.
It's like a burnt orange, yeah. What orange then? What season? Like what day or festival would the orange be for?
What? I feel like it would be used sometime before Christmas and Advent, because maybe when you think of orange, you think of a sunrise. So now you imagine the advent of the light of Christ coming incarnate. Yeah,
Berg would love pre-Advent.
just shove a
Last
service.
day of the church year.
Yeah, just
That's a great one.
shove it.
Yeah.
I mean,
shove the,
I like to pregame all my festivals, so
yeah, just slip something in there sometime before Christmas. I don't want to like displace or defile something else that's in the church calendar. So we just figure out a slot to put it in, just one festival somewhere.
Berg, you saying I pregame all my festivals is going to be my new ringtone.
Define pregame.
I'm going to leave that intentionally vague. Let the reader understand.
Number 3.
What did you really think about the vicarage placement service sermon?
I was not.
You weren't paying attention.
No, I was paying attention. I remember the general point of it. It wasn't, sometimes we've all heard like kind of cringy sermons and whatnot. And it wasn't that. I'm not going to like tell you that it's the best sermon I've ever heard, but I was not disappointed that you were going to be my supervisor when I found out. Let's put it that way.
That's high praise, actually.
Hey, you know what? That was a bold statement and truthful and complimentary. So good work, Vicar.
Yeah.
Number 2.
I would like to hear an impersonation of Arnold Schwarzenegger asking a question in Lutheran Confessions 1.
Oh. How did Melanchthon edit the Augsburg Confession? I don't know. Something like that.
That's not bad.
That was
I like
not
it.
bad.
That's pretty good.
Ah. Very good, yeah.
And number 1.
How is Iowa already different than you expected?
It's all right. I'm not going to say that it's hilly, but it's not as flat as I expected.
Okay.
Let's go with that.
It's not like Wyoming.
No, it isn't.
Yeah. When moving to the Midwest from New York, and then you tell people, it's flat here, they'll always be like, oh, it's hilly in this part of the state, or, in southern Indiana, or in the UP of Michigan, and that it's not. Anytime a Midwesterner says that a certain place isn't as flat, I don't believe them until I have evidence contrary. That's what I've learned.
So you're kind of from the mountain area of New York then?
Well, the Adirondack Mountains are like hour or two north. So I'm from a region called the Mohawk Valley. So it kind of dips down before you get into the Adirondacks if you're heading north, and then it goes back up. So like at my parents' house, like there's a field across from them, and I can see like 15 miles on like this hill that's, on the horizon. So to me, a hill is something that like, that's like you drive 5 miles up. So.
And so what are the misconceptions about people from New York that you've gotten since you moved out this direction?
Well, the obvious one is that you're from New York, so you must live in a city. That's not at all true. It's where I grew up is pretty rural. There was a small city about half an hour away of like 60,000 people. But like the the church I went to growing up, which was a Baptist church, was mostly like, kind of like a lot of farmers were in it, stuff like that. We grow corn, dairy farms, stuff like that.
Okay. All right. That is all my... Berg, do you have any questions that I missed that you would want to know about the Vicar?
Do you live in a region that was owned by the Rensselaers?
I don't know what that is.
So the Rensselaers were part of the Patroon system in New York. They owned like 1 million acres. I think it was like 750,000 acres.
Okay.
And
I'd have
they
to...
were... Okay. Just see if you do, because I'd be interested to see if you did.
Yeah, I'll look it up.
Man, that was such a Berg question. I love it.
That was maybe the most Berg question.
Yeah. Ask Lawrence Rast. He would probably know.
So was it Joseph Smith from New York?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. That's known as the burnt over region.
Yeah, I do know that.
That explains the orange.
Oh.
Oh, man. Vicar. Has it been too many revivals for you?
I didn't go to many revivals.
Oh.
For some reason, I'm thinking that this conversation will end up on an Alex Jones podcast.
God willing.
I have a question.
So,
go ahead.
let's...
Hey, Peter has a question.
Vicar, where can they get a hold of us?
You can email us at feedback@clericalerrors.org. We have a Facebook page, facebook.com/clericalerrorspodcast. We have a Twitter.
At me, bro.
@clericalerrorsp.
P for podcast, bro.
And we have a Patreon at patreon.com/clericalerrorspodcast.
And Vicar, what special thing will you do if someone subscribes to Patreon?
I get to pick something?
Yeah.
Yep. You can give a mandatory free will offering
If you
whatever you want to do.
donate to Patreon, Vicar will write a haiku. He'll write a haiku for you based on whatever miracle that you would like.
Sure. It's not going to be good, but...
And we have a merch store. Did you know that?
Yeah, you told me.
Maybe we should update our merch store.
Oh, yeah, I still need to get my artist on the El Bado t-shirt.
El Bado, and I've got some good lines that should go on some t-shirts and hats.
Just a picture of you. I pregame all of my festivals.
I mean, that would sell.
I want that on a mug.
Yeah, we could be making millions here, guys.
Right.
Our best-selling
product is the riff on that t-shirt. I believe it is.
Which is like the worst picture of me ever. And I think that's why it sells.
I love it so much. It's my favorite. It's my favorite piece of merch.
Oofed up.
That is our bestseller.
It's so good. The sweatpants are great too.
The shirt's better.
So you guys should go buy stuff.
Hey, we got a little bit more time. What do you want us to do?
Vicar, what do you want to do? Do you want to confound the clerics, answer a question?
We should do something theological. We should actually...
Yeah,
we probably should.
Let's do a Reddit. Let's find a Reddit question.
Peter, play the intro.
Confound the clerics.
But that was almost like a most interesting man sort of vibe I was getting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't always drink beer, but when I do, play the intro.
I don't ever listen to this podcast, but...
But
when I do.
Vicar, do you drink beer? Do you drink scotch? Do you drink wine?
I definitely drink water.
Okay.
I probably like wine the best of the alcohol forms.
Okay.
Dry red wines and drier white wines like Sauvignon Blanc.
Oh, nice.
I like bourbon. I'm not too into scotch just because it's more expensive comparatively. And I do like beer. I used to be much more into like craft beers and stuff, but I'm not too much anymore. Because there are a lot of calories, and B, because my wife doesn't really like beer. So, like, if I'm going to buy alcohol, I would normally want it to be something that we could have together as opposed to just me being self-indulgent.
Aw.
But
Thinking to your wife, that's great.
Yeah. But your wife is expecting. Can I say that or not?
yeah, you can.
Okay, so this is your time.
Hey,
This is my
thanks be
time,
to God.
yeah. I don't know if is there much craft beer available in Hampton, Iowa?
Have you
Yeah.
gone to the Rustic Brew?
No, I haven't.
We gotta go.
Bollhagen. Why aren't you taking him to the Rustic Brew?
He can't drink it.
I know, but like, be nice to your vicar.
Yeah, we'll take you out there sometime.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, that's rustic brew, so they do coffee and beer.
All right, so what do we got?
Church politics. Is there any synodical resolution enforcing the use of LSB? The Constitution requires doctrinally pure books, agendas, hymnals, school books, etc. Loosely speaking, this includes CPH material and more specifically that which is approved by the CTCR. Has there been any resolution requiring congregations to switch to the LSB from earlier hymnals? It seems to have been a pretty universal switch once it came out in 2006. I mean, of course, it's fantastic. But was this an official act of the synod exercising church oversight to accomplish a common goal, or just a happenstance of happy consumers? Is there any conflict if a congregation uses TLH or older instead?
So I will answer this start answering by saying that if you're looking for resolutions, you will find a lot of encouragement. Not a lot of enforcing. And so hymnal use and the use of hymnals, people view this the way some people view free speech, where, yes, I think everyone should use a hymnal except for the ones I want to use. Because I know ones that are better. Like, you know how that goes. But, I would say, I can't think of any that would, if there was one that required it, it would never get passed. Wouldn't you say, Berg?
Yep.
So that's the issue. And if we were going to talk about enforcement of using synodical hymns, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that don't get enforced already that would be higher on the list. Like, I think there are probably resolutions a little bit stronger on things like closed communion. And could we say that those are getting enforced? Interesting. So
I'm just asking questions.
right. So that's the thing, is I think it's good, and it's good for, I think the best way to start with this, honestly, is more on a local level rather than a synod level. Like to say as a circuit, hey, let's use a hymnal, for example, and work your way that way, because that's where you can actually bring about change more. But as far as synod and enforcement, good luck, brother. What'd you say, Berg? What am I missing?
LSB sucks. I mean, I don't know how else to say it.
Does it suck because it's bad, or does it suck because the older ones were better?
The older ones were better. TLH was a good hymnal that had some bad stuff in it. LSB is a bad hymnal that has some good stuff in it. They would have been better off taking TLH and cutting out the bad stuff and adding in the new stuff.
Okay.
And Lutheran worship is cringe.
I like Lutheran worship better than LSB in some ways because you have the introits. You have less bulletin nonsense. If I were to have a hymnal, I'd want the Bible and the hymnal to be in the same deal. Then you don't need a bulletin. You can bring it to church. You can use it at home. You can read it. You can do all those kind of things.
In fact, there are some who say, well, you don't even need the Bible, just as long as you have a hymnal.
See, and if you have a Bible hymnal, then you have the best of both worlds. It's like the
Right.
Hannah Montana of the Lutheran world.
Right. Because
See, Vicar knows what I'm talking about. He smiled. He smiled. I see
Because
it.
there was once a discussion amongst some people, I'm going to be vague on purpose, where the question was, if you're stranded on a desert island, what if you could have one book, what would it be? And some said the hymnal. Do you have any feelings on that, Berg?
I do. I have big feelings on that. But we actually need a Bible hymnal, and it wouldn't be that hard to do.
It'd be big.
No, it wouldn't have to be big. It really wouldn't have to be all that big. It's just you would have to limit your hymns to maybe 120 hymns. Which I bet, Bollhagen, I would love to see what your congregation sings on an annual basis.
We use about, I would say, in a 5-year
60
period.
hymns?
I'd be surprised if we used more than, if we used half in the last 5 years.
Right. And so why not limit it to 120 hymns? 120 hymns, one service, one divine service, matins and vespers, maybe compline. It wouldn't be that big. You could do it.
So Vicar, you have
Well,
an
really,
interest-
Berg, what we could do is instead we could just put Bibles in the pews and then use the screens for the service.
They should have it memorized anyways. They don't need screens. If we do the same thing every Sunday, they'll learn it. Doesn't take long. People love the fact that I have a post-sermon hymn, which Matthew Carver translated, so I'm going to give him props for it, where it thanks God for the pure word, and that in the second stanza you have that it might lead us to good works. I've only been here for like a year, but we've done it like every Sunday. So in a very short amount of time, people will think that it's normal. So if you just do it, it'll work.
So I have a question. Vicar, you have, I imagine, interesting viewpoint on this because you have such a wide variety of church experience in your young age, right?
Yeah.
So what is your opinion on some of this stuff as someone who's been Baptist probably most of your life?
Yeah. I became Lutheran when I was 21 or 20. When I was 21 or maybe 20.
Okay.
Yeah, when I was 20, I became Lutheran. Yeah, because it was at the start of COVID. So yeah, I mean, as a convert, to what Pastor Berg was saying, it didn't take me, because my home congregation, would use Divine Service Setting 3, and then the church that I went to in college would also use it. It didn't take me long to pretty much have Divine Service Setting 3 completely memorized, especially when it's one thing to memorize just text that somebody puts in front of you, especially as an adult, it gets harder. But when it's set to music and it's chanted, the music, so then the words come much more naturally. So I think in that regard, you're correct. If someone does do the same thing, they will memorize it. I mean, I can't speak so much for the elderly, but if they grew up with it, then they would know it.
Luther has enough to say about the elderly. And you know what I'm talking about, Vicar. Right?
Nope.
So, don't try to deny it. So, anyway, but the main thing is that pedagogically it's better. Having one service, and I wouldn't mind the different quote-unquote settings in LSB if they were all the same words, but they're not all the same words. A setting has the same words to different music. So 1 and 2 are a setting, right? They're 2 settings, but 1 divine service.
Right.
3 is different. 4 is different. 5 is really different. So we really have, we really have 4 divine services in our book, right?
Mm-hmm.
And is that necessarily a good thing?
I think I can understand from the hymnal's perspective is the fact that you want to get a hymnal approved, and there's only certain ways that you can get it approved. There's that game,
But does the game actually lead to the conclusion you want it to?
Right.
Because, we all might be using the same hymnal, but we have, T-dub hymns alongside Gerhard hymns. Starkey has more hymns than Gerhard, than Paul Gerhard. That seems like a problem. Right?
So is my hymn going to make it then?
Well, you play your cards right. Well,
yes, when I
bring up Timothy Dudley Smith because he just recently died. He was 97 years old. Died maybe less than a week ago. And, he's got some hymns in our hymnal. Anglican. Anglicans are really good for chant. They're really good for King James chant. They're really good when the hymns are really old, like With Christ We Share a Mystic Grave. That is a great hymn when we talk about baptism. Otherwise, let's stick with Bach. Let's stick with Gerhard. Let's stick with, because Luther is hard to sing. I will admit that.
What was
which
the
is
second?
Which is a huge admission from me. So, I'm trying here. I'm trying to meet you halfway.
What was the second half of that question?
Additionally, does anyone know what guidelines there are for pastors introducing non-LSB hymns to their congregations? From a conversation with Paul Grimm, I was told many hymns in the LSB were home-brewed, quote-unquote, and submitted by LCMS congregations, so that factoid obviously presupposes that the practice exists.
Explain it to me, Vicar. I'm an old man.
Well, basically it's what oversight is
now
there
Vicar
for
can't
what's
talk, 'cause
being...
that's a professor of his.
Yeah.
He wants
So
to get it. He wants...
And Grimy sent me something today, which I'm really happy for, so I will answer on his behalf, okay? The thing is that pastors should be trusted to some sort of degree to pick doctrinally pure hymns. If it has to be legislated, then that means that our pastors are slaves and they are terrible, and they have to be told what to do.
Yeah.
Because, this would exclude all of ELH, the Evangelical Lutheran Hymnary that the ELS put out back in, 93, 95, whatever it was?
Right.
That's a great hymnal. It's a beautiful hymnal. It might not be as pretty as the LSB, but a lot more theological thought went into it.
And let's be honest, okay? No one who has these discussions, okay, they're never thinking of themselves. They're like, how can we affect what the other guy is doing in his church? I think it comes from a pious desire to want to be united. I really do. But instead of using what Paul does, I beseech you by the mercies of God, right? Mm-hmm.
I beseech you to walk with us. It becomes a matter of the law. Okay, let's pass a resolution saying we can only use the LSB. Screw that. I'm not going to give up TLH. There are too many good hymns in it. Its language is better. And that's just the TLH. I'm going to use the ELS if I can, the ELH hymnal. Why wouldn't I? Where, for by grace I'm saved, they have more stanzas to the hymn. I cling to what my Savior taught and trust it whether felt or not. Why isn't that in our hymnal? Because we didn't want to pay for it? Is that really the reason?
I have no idea.
So,
Vicar, we need your... Just one more question. No.
So, anyone
we need
trying
to make space for Earth and all stars, Berg.
Oh, Lord,
It's
have
very
mercy.
important.
Loud boiling test tubes. Boy, that really edifies my faith. Let's make some lead into gold here, just like we should make that song into a classic hymn.
Well, I hate to end this, but I have a meeting here.
Oh,
gotta go.
Boo.
Right when you get on a
Come
roll,
on.
Berg. I apologize.
Well, you know.
Well, Vicar, what do you think of your first episode?
It's an experience.
And
one down,
experience.
51 to go.
Yep.
All right.
That's all right. Most vicars, this is true, like, get teary-eyed on their last episode. So, it'll happen.
Sounds good.
Whether from joy or from sorrow, we might never
Yeah,
know.
right.
To be determined.
All right. So, thank you for listening. We got to end it here because Vicar and I have a meeting to go to. This is Bollhagen.
This is Berg.
This is Vicar.
And may your hymnal discussions contain test tubes.
Thank you for joining us. This podcast is available on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, or wherever else you get your podcasts. Questions, thoughts, concerns? You can contact us on Facebook at facebook.com/Clerical Errors Podcast, on Twitter at Clerical Errors P for podcast, or email us at feedback@clericalerrors.org. Thanks for listening to Clerical Errors. See you next time.